it's Adrenium, and welcome back to another Minecraft Vehicles video. So, a little over a year ago, I uploaded my first Minecraft Vehicles video, which was about cars, and this one is about cars too. That is mainly because, as you can see, this was my most popular video. But since then, the falling sand entity bug has been patched, which was in a majority of my car designs back then. Also, the quality of that video was really trash because my resolution in-game was kind of messed up. So I'm just gonna take you through each of these 25 car designs. This first design is a tractor, and you can see here at the front I've used the loom block as the grille, decorated with some of the new spruce signposts. I've used the classic glass inside the item frame as a headlight on a hopper to make it look like it is going out of the body of the tractor. Then I've just used an anvil as the engine. I've used 4 coal blocks in a 2x2 pattern, and there can't be a sensor in that unless I use staircases, so I thought it was a cool idea to use banners instead to make a center point of the wheel. Then we have a kind of new version of the white sports car I made in the last video. And by the way, if you haven't checked that out already, there will be an iCard on the top right of your screen. But here I've used the new technique where you can put item frames on top of blocks now. So I put a glass inside an item frame and then put snow on top, so it sticks out of the snow layer. It looks kind of like lights, and I think this has a pretty cool effect on this kind of sports car. I've used a lot of snow layers to get curvature and shapes in. That can be done because this is a white car, and that is also why you will see a lot of white cars down the row. But I will also try to explain how to use different colors, because it is not every car you want to be white in your city. Then next up we have this kind of muscle car, where I have used signs at the bottom to make these front and back lights be more integrated into the car. Inside I've used the loom again as a grille, and on top I've also used snow layers and slabs to make a nice shape out of this. I tried to go for a kind of a muscle car look, but at the same time I wanted to be a bit older than most muscle cars. You can also see that the majority of the car is 1.5 block high, and I think that in some instances it doesn't look very good with full block glass, because the glass just comes down too low here on the side, but I think it works on this design. Next up we have a police car, and here I've also used nether brick slabs to make stripes of black. Again, I've used the new 1.14 loom as the grille, a very simple headlight, and then full block glass again to make the car very square. And I think that this works in some cars. If it has to be a little more cartoonish car, I would definitely make it a bit high with a lot of full blocks and a lot of half slabs instead of a lot of snow layers. And for this car, I think it works very well. Also because Minecraft isn't supposed to be very realistic, but you can choose that in some of the other cars that comes ahead and stuff like that. But overall, this is a very simple car to build. I think you can just build it out of what I've shown you here. Then the next one, this is probably my least favorite designs of all, but I thought I would include it anyways. I don't really think that this looks that great. There comes a more simpler orange car down at the back, which I think looks way more impressive than this one. Or not even impressive, but just looks much better, because this one is kind of dull and lame. But I thought I would want to show it anyway. The front lights and the backlights are pretty much the same, with the glass instead of an item frame sticking out of the sign. The only thing that is different, this trapdoor at the front, I used as a grille. It is kind of a great way to show that there is a grille, because this is probably one of the best blocks to use for that purpose. Next up we have a modern big family car, kind of like a big Volvo or something like that. I can maybe show you a picture of it right now. Yeah, so the picture you see on screen right now was my inspiration for this design, where it is a bit bulky at the back end. You can see here at the side, I've also made this indent, and I've seen this in a lot of these types of cars. The big thing right in this design is the front lights. I've used banner designs, And these banner designs, I think they make this car look very modern. Also, down at the wheels, I've also used banners, and I also think that makes it look very modern. Then a new feature is the skulls on top of levers, but of course supposed to be mirrors. At the back here, I've made some very intricate shapes with these staircases. And this is a bit more trial and error. There's not really a good way to explain what I did here, but I think that this looks pretty good in the end. Maybe not what you want in your city, but a kind of nice design to have standing on its own. It is very detailed, so it may take some things away from the other cars you've built, but I thought I would show you this anyways, because I really like this design. Next up we have a Volkswagen Beetle, which in real life is my favorite car. You can see here the staircases at the front and at the back are the exact same, just switch around from the police car. And that is because I wanted to give it a very light look at the front, because in real life it has its engine at the back, so I kind of made it a bit more bulky at the back end. But the wheels and the lights are pretty much the same as anything else. The only thing is the top part here and the front, where I've used snow layers to make it very curved. I also tried this in my other video, but I didn't quite get it to work. But I think I've done it nicely this time. I really like this car, both in Minecraft but also in real life. That is also why I included it here. Now we have a very, very simple car. I thought that in my other vehicles video, many of these car designs you may not want to include in your city, but this one is very easy to build and very easy to set up with all the resources and such things. The only hard thing is to get this iron trapdoor, and that is not really an issue. Underneath the trapdoor, I've used the new type of blast furnace to make a bit more detail down under the grill. And then of course the trapdoor as the grill itself. But the main body of the vehicle is just a flat slab of this concrete. At the back here I've put a button, and that is just because I wanted to have a more detail and make it look like that you can open the back. Next up we have a fire truck. And this is a very simple one. I've used the jungle signs down at the bottom here and used 2 sets of lights. Down at the bottom I've used the old glass block inside of an item frame peeking through the signs, and at the top here I've just used the normal ones. Then as a grill I've used 2 observers and then some acacia trapdoors as the grill. Then from the side view I've made these stairs over the wheel to make room for the wheel can spin around, because they are very big in real life, but I couldn't really make them bigger without them getting too big. Then I've only used glass panes because I think that makes it a bit more square rather than having different types of windows. And then I've used a stair to make a quarter block window, which I think has a really nice effect and gives it a bit more detail at the back. Then I've used tripwire hooks for more details. Maybe you can hang your axes and tools to break down doors and such things. And then these trapdoors on the sides is supposed to be a ladder you can climb up. These smooth stones and this double slab right here is supposed to be compartments for other things, such as fire hoses or other tools. And at the back wheel I've again made a bit space for this wheel to make it look like it's a bit bigger than it actually is. And then at the back I've just used these very simple lights. But going to the next one, I have used the new smooth sandstone. In the front is a very classic one with the ladders and the item frames, but the windows I've used the new sandstone walls to make the overhang rest on top of these windows. And I also think that this looks more realistic than just having glass. And I've used skulls on the levers again for the mirrors, and then I've just made this nice shape to make the camper van, but with an oak wood stripe in the middle, where I've used dark oak signs to make a bit more detail out of this stripe. Then also at the front I used a stair with a sign to make a little room over this coal block, but I also wanted to not be half a block but only a quarter of a block, and I think I've accomplished that with putting a sign that blends in. I've also made room over the back wheels. And then moving on to my second favorite car in real life and in this collection, that is the Volkswagen Camper van. But in my last video I used the falling sand entities to make the iconic shape at the front, but since that has been removed, I've used this nice banner design. So I can show you how it's made up on the screen right now if you want to make them yourselves. But the rest of the car is actually very simple: cyan concrete, quartz with glass in, and then this storage compartment on top. And I think that overall this looks really good, but of course it is the front that is the main theme. Next up we have this pickup truck, and I've made this using prismarine stairs and blocks. At the front I've made these very simple front lights with a ladder as a grille, very classic one. But the main theme here is the use of this color. At the top I've just used a very simple design with a cross in half slabs, and then in the corners I've used trapdoors. At the back I made a smokestack for all the smoke that comes out of the exhaust. There is some cargo at the back, and it's all enclosed with these dark spruce trapdoors. And at the back I've just used the glass block inside of an item frame poking out of the signs again. At the sides I've also used buttons as the handle that you can pull down and open the doors. Here we have a very trashy car. I wanted this to be kind of an old and downgraded car, very grey, and this grey concrete does a very good job of this because it has a slight, yellow tint to it, so it looks very worn down. I also used yellow glass inside of an item frames at the front instead of making them white, because I wanted this to be a very trashy car, because I also think that city should need these. So if you want to build this on your own, it is very easy, but I thought you want to place it down an alleyway or something like that, or in a bad neighborhood, or I don't really know, but this is supposed to be a very, old and bad car. The next two is trucks. The first one is kind of known as a European truck because it is very flat at the front, whilst this one on the right is known as an American truck because it has this very bulky snout, or I don't really know what to call it, but you know what I mean. So at the front here I've made 3 banner designs, and I will also show you how you could make these yourself. And it has these 2 stripes in it, which makes a very, very good grille to this truck. I've seen a lot of pictures of this kind of truck, and they all have these stripes, so I thought that I would recreate that in Minecraft. And underneath I also have redstone torches to make a bit of a headlight, because I couldn't really fit anything else other than this cyan line down at the bottom. But at the top I also have lights inside of item frames poking out of signs again. But at the truck to the right I've used 4 iron trapdoors as a grille, and you can see that the levers on the side are powered. And that is because I couldn't find another way to power these trapdoors, but I also think that it makes a nice detail. I've used very simple lights at the front, and then I've used 2 walls at the front also to make a bit more detail. And as the mirrors, I've used the same technique on both of the trucks, where I've used a lever and a white paint on top. At the sides I've used a banner to make it look like a door, and I made 2 smokestacks on both trucks. The blue truck is 4 blocks wide, and therefore I had to use a 2x2 configuration of stair blocks, making a 1 block center, as you can see right here. Whereas on the European truck, this is 3 blocks wide, so here I only needed to use 2 stairs, and you can see the effect over on that side. Either way, I think that these trucks look pretty good. I've also tried to make some smoke coming out of the smokestacks. So here we have 2 cars that are very similar. Actually, they are the exact same design, but I've just turned around the color scheme. So the one on the left is green, and the one on the right is gray, as you can see. I've used the exact same techniques. At the front I've made 2 pair of lights, which gives the car a very firm look, with these birch signs at the bottom and spruce signs on the right. I made these 2 cars just to show you that you could make a lot of the same car, but switch it up in different color schemes and maybe some design changes here and there. These are very easy to make. The main thing is these trims of signs at the bottom, button back and front end of the car. And at the back you can see I've used one set of lights, and that is inside the item frame poking out the signs. Then I come to my first very old car. I know I made 2 cars that were in this style last video, but I think I just wanted to make one for now. I think that this car design makes them justice though, as I really like this design. It's very bulky at the back to hold a lot of people, and kind of skinny at the front. But it's complemented by these spare wheels and this big arch over the front wheels. I've used a lot of dark oak textures, these new signs, these new trapdoors, and I also used daylight sensors at the back to give it a bit more curvature that you've not seen before, as the daylight sensors are a very odd height, so I thought it would make a very intricate detail at the back right here. I like that the main theme is brown, but this line of grey is poking through the design. I really think that it makes harmony in the design, and all the textures blend in very nicely. These wheel designs is also made in a different way, with buttons inside of item frames, whereas on the other designs I've just used buttons, or even in that other one design, a banner. I made these next 2 designs just to figure out how we can use banners as front lights and back lights in other ways. On the left you see that the banners are poking out through the stairs, and it actually looks like they're connected to the back end of the stair, and I think this looks pretty nice. I also have seen a lot of designs out in the real world with this type of lights going kind of into the design of the car, and I actually think that the car on the left looks pretty realistic. But also the car on the right I think looks pretty good, where I just have this very simple banner with a border around it. I will of course show you how to make both of these banner designs. The car on the left is very square at the front, and it's very flat on the top, and do not have as much curvature as some of the other designs I've shown you, whereas the car on the right is kind of a spin-off to one of the first designs I showed you right here on the screen right now. So you can see they're kind of similar to each other. This one is a bit more flat though. I also used buttons at the handles so you can open the doors, and the backs of both cars there's just some very simple clones of the banners at the front, but at the back, but these are red instead of blue of course. And then we came to the one I talked about earlier, this very simple orange car. Actually you could have made this a very long time ago, because none of these tricks are very new, but I wanted to show you anyways. This is probably the easiest car to build yet. It is very simple here at the front with the ladder. Used very simple lights, also very simple wheels with just button and coal block. And since you can make this in 16 different colors and even more if you want to go away from the concrete blocks and also try out different kinds of other blocks and color schemes, you could do that also. But there's at least 16 different ways you could make this car, and that makes it kind of unique actually, even though it is such a simple design. And you could easily have a lot of these in your cities and just have them different colors, and they would decorate it really well. Because they're so simple, they don't take away any of your fancy buildings, but they instead add to the feeling of an inner city or a little suburban area. And I think that the most amazing property of these cars is they supplement other buildings you have made, complement the buildings around them, and makes them fit into a specific theme or area. Then here I've made 2 buses. This first one is kind of a modern city bus, and the one to the right is of course a school bus. The first one I've used a blue color scheme, and I've used some very cool banners at the front, both as the grille but also as the lights, and I'll show you how to make them on screen of course. The windows are 2 blocks tall, but I've switched between panes and full blocks, and that gives the effect that the bottom ones can open, which is very realistic in modern buses, and it also makes some cool details to the otherwise very flat surfaces. It has 2 doors, one at the back and one at the front, as most buses do nowadays, and it's just a very simple design. And then I've also put beds and snow layers to make it look like that they have opened for some ventilation or something like that, so the passengers can get fresh air, which is also very common in these types of buses. Then we come to the school bus, where I've paired the oak with the yellow terracotta. This was not my idea. I saw this on Google Images, but I've just further developed the design to make it even more great. We have this big window at the front with mirrors pointing out of each side, both headlights down here at the bottom, but also some supplemental lights at the top on these nether brick stairs. Then on the side, I've done the exact same technique where I have switched between glass panes and full blocks, but instead of doing it horizontally, I've done it vertically, because I found that in most school buses, they have these very high but narrow windows, but there isn't really any narrow blocks that can fit between these windows, so I thought that this was a good alternative. It gives a very nice effect nonetheless. And I also didn't want them to be too tall, so I made this stripe in the middle of dark oak wood, as you often see in school buses, this supplemental line going from one end to another. At the front, I've also used full half slabs, but at the back, I've only used trapdoors, and that is because I wanted to give the bus a very light end rather than a heavy end. Then at the back, I've used a lot of lights to signal to the other cars that, hey, there's a school bus here. Then I've used a lot of lights, as you see on these types of school buses. Also on the other bus, I've used 2 pairs backlights, but on the school bus, I've also made some orange lights that indicate when I have to turn a corner. And then I tried to put a red pane in an item frame to make the stop signs that you see on school buses, but it just looks like another light, but I think it's fine nonetheless. And finally, for the last 2 cars. The first one here is just a very simple golf cart. I just want to make a very small design to end it all off. So at the front here, I've just used a very, very simple technique. You can kind of see how I've done it here. I don't really need to explain anything. But at the back, I've used a grindstone for some golfing equipment, as well as a wall with an iron bar stuck into it. Looked like a golf club or something like that. The orange is supposed to be seat, both at the front and at the back, so a lot of people can be in this design. Not really, but you can probably fit like 3 at the front and 2 at the back, just for fun. And then I have the last designs where I toyed around with how I can make the gap over the wheels look very interesting. And here I've just used some stairs with signs. The front very simple lighting. No grill, just because you could just put very simple loom with some carpet on top, but I didn't really want to do that. And then at the back, also very simple, just with some stairs. Lastly, I just want to say a huge thank you for watching this video. I've tried to make a lot of unique designs, but also show you how you can turn your designs into greater accomplishments, or whatever you might say. I won't be showing you how to build cars, but I have a few tips. The first tip is, if you want to start making cars, go for something simple like the orange car that you see behind me. If you want to go more, I don't know, big and creative, or something more complicated, look up some vehicles that other people have built. Just search on Google Minecraft cars or Minecraft vehicles or something like that. Or watch my other video on these types of cars. Or go and rewatch this one. It could be that now that you've seen everything and heard what I've got to say, that you might find these vehicles in a different light and can get a lot of inspiration out of them. The last thing on the list is that you never give up. I know it can be a bit hard to make some of these designs, but I've practiced a lot. I've just found inspiration on the internet, practiced a lot. So if one of your designs doesn't end up looking that good, it doesn't matter. I've also made so many car cars that are just so ugly that I've destroyed and built new ones, and it doesn't matter how many tries it has to take, as long as it looks good in the end and you're satisfied with it. You can also just try to building them next to buildings and have a feel for what they look like, not on their own, but with some terrain around them and an environment for them to be in. Thanks so much for watching. It's been very fun to make this part 2, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.